So last week we announced,
Sorry.
the dog. All right, Bev says she got her kit yesterday. Last week we announced, if you don't know what we're talking about, the new fabric. We got some new fabric in, and we're starting a sew along today for our 5 Easy Tees pattern. This is one of our most popular patterns, and obviously the name explains itself.
It's a really nice, well-fitting tee, and it is based on CS 1207, which is Connie Crawford's basic block for knit tees. So if you did the knit fit, that's what you use with the CS 1207, and you already have your sloper, you'll be very happy to know you'll be able to compare it to this pattern and know if you have to make any changes and exactly what they'll be. So good. That's good.
So a lot of people are saying they got their fabric. Brenda said she hesitated, which is not like you at all.
Brenda the Spenda?
She must have had baby on the brain.
I cut her fabric.
Because she hesitated, and she said she lost out on the purple.
The plum, dusty plum.
Yep, the dusty plum, but she got the red.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're lucky because now that's out.
Yeah, and you're going to look great in that red. When I was cutting it, I said, oh, perfect choice for you, Brenda. So I think you're going to look great. You're going to love it. It's got a nice drape. And we hope to get some more of that dusty plum one day. And if we do, then you'll be able to make a second one.
You won't hesitate.
And the nice thing about this t-shirt pattern is once you've got a t-shirt down, then it's like an hour and a half and you got another t-shirt. You can pick, you could take a weekend and make yourself a half a dozen in different colors. So once you have that pattern down, it's not all about moving on to the next project. It's moving on to the next t-shirt. Full long sleeve, 3/4 short, sleeveless.
That's what's great about it is that, you could make the same short sleeve tee in 6 colors. You could take one color and make the short sleeve, the 3/4, the peekaboo shoulder.
And don't forget prints, like you're wearing.
Prints.
You're wearing one of the bamboo prints
we
that
don't have this,
we used to have, but it is the 5 Easy Tees in the short sleeve.
So as we're saying, a lot of the colors already sold out. We're so happy that you guys liked what we picked and gobbled them right up. But there are a few colors left, so if you're still thinking about it, don't hesitate, especially if you want the kit. But we also wanted to remind you that there are some other fabrics on the website that are suitable for this pattern. They're just not offered in the kit. So I just wanted to show those to you real fast before we got started.
Yes. Now these are not terry. They're not French terry, but they're bamboo or rayon knits.
Like mine is not the French terry.
But it's a bamboo knit.
Right. And so we showed you that heathered gray last week. So I didn't pull that one because I know we want to get to the sew along. But we also have a red.
And this is our bamboo that we've used so many times before for Easy V. We use the bamboo in the kit. So this is that same quality, same fabric.
We have the white.
Now this is a winter white.
Yep.
So it's got just a little,
slightly off, not a bright white.
Right.
It's really a really pretty white.
Well, like a cream color. And that is a rayon, not a bamboo, but a rayon, but a very nice body.
And then if you're looking for prints, just want to be sure. If you're looking for prints, this one is very fun. It's a bigger print, so let me, but not too big.
It's bright and fun. Definitely. And this would be a really fun tee to wear with all white slack, or in the winter time you could wear it with a black blazer and slacks. And then you get that pop of color, but you have your basic black.
And then one more that I really like. Well, look at me, my feathers.
Black and gray.
I know what I like here. And I'll move it closer too so you can see the detail and the pattern. And I wonder.
That's rayon as well.
Yes. And I wonder about like it not showing up well on the website. So I want you to see because I just think it's a really fun print. It's not too big. It's not too
bold,
loud.
yeah.
If you want to be more muted, it gives you a pattern. So it's not so boring, but
Yeah,
it's not like, hey, I'm
Yeah, it
bored.
reads more as a neutral. So yeah, great. And of course we still have the chartreuse and the apricot and a little bit of turquoise and that luscious black and as well at this time.
Yes. So I just want to remind you of that. Sorry. I got a lot of comments here. So that you know there are other options. They just don't come in the kit. So if you weren't interested in the colors that we do have left, there's still options for you. Yeah, Mary says, I have many tops out of this pattern.
Oh, good.
Does the fabric come
Me too.
USPS? Yes, we use USPS for most everything.
Oh, for the kids and everything, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, the only time we send like FedEx or UPS is when things are really large or heavy. Otherwise, post office is best.
Yes, Mary says she has this in her stash.
Ooh,
So
Mary.
you should get moving, Mary. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's what we wanted to update you on. So you still have time if you wanted to do the sew along, and obviously the videos stay on our Facebook page. So you can always come back and do it later if you're not in a place right now. If you're not going to participate in the sew along, that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch.
Sure.
Because you're going to learn a lot of tips and techniques along the way that you can incorporate into other parts of your sewing. So are you ready to get started? Are you guys ready to get started? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to get started with the sew along.
Several people have written and asked if they haven't done the knit fit, should they do that first? That is not a straightforward answer. I can't give you a straightforward answer, in other words. So what I would query you if that was your question is, do you have any shoulder slope issues? Do you have a forward leaning shoulder? Do you have a very strong slope to your shoulder? Because those are the kind of things, or a rounded back. Those are the kind of things you want to correct in a pattern before you make it. So, but if you don't have those issues, then likely you'll be able to make this right out of the package. Just make sure that you choose the size. I don't care what the rest of your measurements are. Choose the size according to your full bust. That is not always the case with every pattern, but with this knit pattern, it's the best way to get the best fit. And we've had no one disagree with us for years. We keep telling them, you just buy the full bust and it's going to fit great. And some people are skeptical, but once they do it, they go, oh, you were right. So yeah, let's get started. If you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready. They're ready. We got the thumbs up. They're
Okay.
ready.
All right. I guess I got to get up now.
Unless you just want to talk it through and they can figure it out on their
Yeah,
own.
that would be great. Just no picture on the screen,
Yeah.
just talking.
Just talking. All right, so Janice, move over to the other side of the table. Oops, sorry. And I will take you to the other side of the table.
Okay, so as Jessica said, this sew along is about the 5 easy tees. And one thing, if you are going to cut it out of a print, I would not recommend using this opaque pattern and cutting it on the fold, because you cannot see the placement, especially like that really bright one that Jessica showed you, of the flowers and where they just might land. And you want to be very strategic with that. So what I would recommend, if you're cutting out a larger print or something that you want to control, is that you turn your pattern from a cut on the fold to cut on the flat. So here's what I did. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You could just take a piece of paper, fold it in half, trace this pattern out by putting this on the fold, and then you'll have a full piece. For me, I don't know whether I was being lazy or whatever, but I was in a hurry. So I just added the second piece to this one, and when I'm not cutting on the flat, I can fold it out of the way. So either way, you can cut that pattern, especially if you use a more transparent paper. Then you can see where that print's going to land. And we all know we don't want a giant flower to land right in the center of our bust. It always just immediately screams a silly look. So anyway, if you're going to cut a print, you'll do that with the front. You can do that with the back as well. You can do that with any pattern that's cut on the fold. If you want to cut stripes or plaids or whatever, and you want to make sure that you've strategically placed all of your print, that's the way to do it. And it'll be just as accurate as the one cut on the fold. Okay, so any questions, Jen? Right. So you only have 3 main pattern pieces and a neckband piece. I, for one, would never try to pin this piece of paper down and cut around it, because inevitably what happens is, whether you put weights on it or you put pins in it, the pattern piece is going to kind of ripple. And then it makes even more difficult to cut around it, and you get done and you have this really wonky looking thing. So my way of doing it, you can do it whichever way you prefer, but this is 1 inch wide. So it's 1 inch. So I take my quilter's ruler. I don't quilt, but I own the rulers, because it's perfect for cutting 1 inch strip. So I just cut a nice straight edge and then cut a 1 inch strip. And I usually cut it quite a bit longer, maybe 1 inch or 2 longer than this, because I'll trim it to exactly the right size when I'm done pressing it. So that's my tip on cutting the neckband. It's 1 inch wide, just cut a nice long strip 1 inch wide, and then you can mark it later. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the markings in just a second. Okay, so the other question that people were having is about the neckline. What if I want to change the neckline or raise or lower the neckline? So what I've done is I've drawn a straight line here to line my pattern up on. And then I would tape that down. But depending, eventually it's going to get taped down. So let's say that you maybe did a muslin or you did some measurement and you decided you wanted this neckline 1 inch higher than it is. So we're just going to mark on here 1 inch higher. And then to make that mark, you're going to come up the 1 inch and draw that shape in. And then come back down to where you were, and now you can blend, and you can use a French curve for that as well if you want to get a nice curve, but I use the pattern here. So now I've just raised my neckline by 1 inch. It's that easy. Now you could raise that neckline by 1 inch without tracing the pattern. Come down here, maybe you've got it taped down and you want to come up 1 inch. Then you can use your curved ruler to get it to blend into your rest of your neckline. Oops. You see, and then that would just blend right in, and that would be your new neckline. The same thing if you want to lower the neckline. You would do it just the reverse. If you want to change the shape altogether of the neckline, then the best thing to do is to use, to make a little muslin out of it. A little knit muslin. It wouldn't even, if you're just got a little scrap of fabric and you just wanted to make sure that you got the right shape and it laid flat. Then maybe another pattern that has an oval neckline or a square neckline or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you could do that. But this is how you could raise and lower it very easily. Any questions on that? And of course, again, this would be taped on here.
No questions on that yet, but Karen is asking, regarding picking a size, my size in the knit sloper was a 10. Would it be a 6/8 in the 5 easy tees?
If that's the bust measurement. You know, I made the 5 easy tees before I owned Fashion Patterns by Connie. And so my sizing might be one different than hers. I don't have that pattern in front of me. Can you grab one, Jess? Or, hey, ask Brenda. Brenda? Yeah. Could you grab us a 1207 so we can read the back of the pattern guide?
Oh, she just had one.
She just happened to have one?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so, and she says she was a 10.
Yes.
Okay, so a 10 is a 36 bust. And nope. Oh, yep. And ours a 6/8. So you want to go with the 6/8 if you were a 10. But you don't need to even know that. All you need to do is get out your sloper pattern and your 5 easy tee patterns and superimpose them to see if there's any major difference, and then you'll know exactly which lines to cut on.
Yep, and Tina gets a gold star because she was typing that when you said it. Take your sloper and lay it over.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy wants to know, do you then measure the neck and cut the band according to that measurement?
Yes, yes. So you're absolutely right, Sandy. And what you would do to do that is, of course, you're going to mark your neckline. And our neckline on here is a 1/4 inch. So we would come in here and we would mark the 1/4 inch neckline. I'm just going to mark part of it for you. And then we're going to measure either with a bendable ruler. I have a new one, but I don't see it. There's lots of different ways. You can also measure by standing your tape measure straight up and measure that neckline, remembering to subtract the shoulder seams from the front and the back. So the best thing that you could do is mark that 1/4 inch seam allowance here, and then you know to stop measuring. So I'm going to measure from that 1/4 inch all the way to this fold and then double it. So let's say that was 10 inches, we got 20 inches in the front. You're just going to double it. And then you do the same thing with the back, but be sure to mark that to remind you to subtract that seam allowance. Okay, what else? No other questions, Jess?
What if they want to make it longer? The shirt longer,
yes.
Not the neckline.
The same thing. You're just going to go in reverse. So our neckline was here, let's say, and then we're going to mark an inch lower, and you'd probably retrace this, but an inch lower comes out right about here. And follow the same shape.
Yeah, but what about the shirt?
The shirt, if you want the shirt longer, there's 1.5 yards in your kit, and of course that's what we say is the requirement. I double checked it this morning. I cut out this extra large, and I had an additional 6 inches. So you could actually, and I don't know anybody that tall, but you lengthen and shorten it, the lengthen and shorten line, split it apart, and put the precise amount in there that you want to add. But with that 1.5 yards, you'll be able to lengthen this. Almost anybody will be able to lengthen it to the length they want, because again, it goes by 6 inches. I mean, you can get as much as 6 inches. Okay, there's 2 different hems. There is a straight across hem in this pattern, and there's a shirt tail hem. If you are like so many of us at a certain age, you may have a rounding to your back. And we've gone over this many ways here on Facebook, but let's say that you haven't made that adjustment to a sloper and your bottom back of your hem it will tip up a little bit because you're rounded in the back. The nice thing about a shirt tail hem is that it hangs lower automatically in the center than it does on the side. So it kind of camouflages that. Sure, you're better off to have your sloper so that you can double check that, but that's a good reason to use the shirt tail hem. It's my favorite. I always cut the shirt tail hem.
I find it to be more flattering.
I think so too.
Maybe not for everybody, but I know, did you talk about, I know you talked about how to cut out the neckband, but the pattern piece, but what about the actual piece? You did talk about that?
Yeah, I cut it out with the ruler.
And then about the cross grain?
Always cut it on the cross grain. Good point, Jess. Always cut your neckband on the cross grain because you want the most amount of stretch. Now, occasionally in Connie's sloper pattern, she would have told you to cut it on the bias. And I asked her why she did that, and she said because so many times, and she was teaching students, which are very raw, maybe never had any sewing at all. So they just started college, and they would pick the worst or the cheapest knits, and sometimes they didn't have enough stretch to them. So by cutting it on the bias, you always get enough stretch. But the fabrics that we've offered for this kit and that we have a la carte are all stretchy enough. Just cut them on the cross grain.
Pamela's wondering about shortening the shirt. Do you have to fold it a special way at the shorten, lengthen line?
No, when you do that, so let's say that we're going to shorten this. Let me do a little. All right, so let's say that you wanted to shorten it all of 2 inches. And that happens to me sometimes. I have to do 2 inches. So I would fold this up to that line, that 2-inch line. Now look, we didn't have any discrepancy here at all. Every once in a while there might be a discrepancy where these 2 edges don't end up and you'll just blend them together. But that's a full 1-inch fold, which is a 2-inch difference. And it comes out just fine.
So the questions.
Okay, good.
But if you have any questions, feel free.
All right, well, we're going to go, let me grab these other pieces here and talk about marking. Now, I chose the turquoise. I waited for all of you to get your kits before I picked a color. And there's a little bit of this left, but I think it's really pretty. It's, okay, so once your pattern has been cut, you want to mark the 3 spots on the sleeve cap. And it's important to keep those accurate. Now what we use is a small snip in the seam allowance. I've had people who cut it too deep or pulled too hard on the edge of the fabric after it was cut and the slit continued to grow. So be very cautious of that or mark with a different way of marking on knits. But I don't have any problem with this, so I'm going to make little 1/8-inch slits where you see the opening for the notch.
Pamela, we do still have this color that Janet's working on left.
Yeah, there's enough for a few more kits. So what you want to do is use a very sharp tailor point scissor. You may have this in your stash already, but if you don't, you need some. And the reason is anytime you're clipping a curve or clipping into anything, regular scissors have a blunt tip, and they're not as sharp down here at the tip. I always have to tell new students to sewing. I had one a couple weeks ago, and they were trying to cut like this, just little snips at the end. Well, that's not where it's sharp. You want to start back here and get nice glides, which is great for cutting things out. But for clipping, you want a nice sharp, sharp point. And these are fabulous. They're Kai's, and we do carry them. But if you've got tailor points, be sure to use those for these areas because it does make a big difference. So there's our sleeve. And then the back and the front have similar, so I'm just going to go with the back here.
All right, hold on one second, Janet. So
sure.
We have a question. Tina says the cutting view in the instructions have the sleeve overlapping each other. Help me. I'm not seeing getting two sleeves out of this layout.
Okay, these are not overlapping. Is she on page 4? Oh, I see where she's at. All right, so what you need to know here, who am I talking to?
Tina.
Tina. This is going to be unfolded after you cut these two pieces out. So these have been folded to the center. Okay, that's the salvages. Once these two pieces are cut out, this whole piece can be now folded in half. And you'll have plenty of room for both. That's just a placeholder. But this width across here, once these two pieces are cut out, then you can refold that in order to cut two sleeves at once.
All right.
I hope that made sense.
If it doesn't, just ask you again.
Yep. Okay, so here's my back, and this pattern, I've made a lot of these for myself, so it's a little, getting a little worn. But you know how I always tell you when you make a change on one of your patterns to make sure you make notes. So you're going to see, probably can't read it because it'd be backwards and upside down, but I raised the back neckline. So I raised it probably 1/4 of an inch. I can see how much I raised it. And I narrowed the shoulders. I want to know that for any future projects, or once this pattern wears out and I go to get a fresh one, I want to make these same changes again. Because I need a little bit narrower shoulder and a little higher in the back neck. Okay, so then we're going to always clip the center or mark the center. If you're not clipping it, mark it. So center front and center back. So it's right on the fold here, and what I want to do is just make a little 1/8 inch slit right there in that, so I know what the center back is. And then, of course, our double notches for the back arm side. Now, what I am not going to mark, just because it's not the way I do it, but I giving you both options in the pattern, this is the marking for putting the neckband on. But I quarter the neckband and don't use these markings. So you can use these markings and then you'll correspond them to the markings that are here on the band. But when we get into construction, I'll show you an alternate way to do it that I think you'll find easier. I know I do. Okay, so we've got our notches marked, we've got our center marked. And let's assume we did the same thing on the front, because it's going to have a single arm side notch and, of course, a center front. Oh, here it is right here. I just don't have the piece here. So the front, we would have marked a single notch and a little slit right here at the front. Or, again, you can use, a chalkener. And that works really good, too, because it shows up so well on the knit. And it makes such a nice fine mark. So you can use this for stitching lines, for all kinds of things. But the chalkener is a fabulous tool because it's very accurate. Okay, do we have any questions about cutting it out before I go to the stay tape section?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me make sure I covered everything on my list.
How does the marks on the arm side relate to the neckband?
They don't. It is not the arm side that those, oh, I'm sorry. What the heck? Oh, good point. I meant to point.
You were pointing backwards.
I meant to point at these right
Thanks,
here.
Ethel.
Do not put your neckband on your arm side. Thanks, Ethel. Yeah. Well, somebody's paying attention. That's good to know. This is another mark that you'll want to mark, and you'll definitely want to do this with a chalkener. So let me show you how I would do that. Oh, I don't have that piece here. Okay, so, and I don't have a pin.
Oh, I saw some on the floor. You want me to grab it?
Yeah. Grab me a pin. Let me just go grab that.
There you go.
Yeah, let me grab that front, and I'll just do it right on the front. Okay, so it's so nice to know people are paying attention.
Brenda says, I thought I was crazy. Well, this doesn't confirm you're not, Brenda, but you were right about that.
Okay, so what I generally do personally is a measurement. So I just measure, I know how long it has to be, and when I get to the sewing station, which I'll show you when we get to the construction in the next week. But the extra large is right here, so I'm going to put the pin right through the fabric. I'm going to put it through the paper here, through the fabric. And we want this marked on the wrong side, so we've got it folded right side out, so that's helpful. And so right there is where we want to end so there's our chalk mark. I can make it a little more obvious for the camera. And that's where we're going to end when we put our elastic on. If you're choosing not to do the ruching down the front, just ignore that marking. But make sure you put it on the wrong side.
And not in your arm side.
And not in your armpit, no.
Okay, Liz just has a question about, she has narrow shoulders and a large bust. So she's wondering how to get rid of the excess fabric in the chest between the shoulder and the bust.
Between here and here, or here and here. She wants a narrower shoulder. You can trim the shoulder down just like I did. I trimmed it down by about 1/4 of an inch, but you've got to test to see. You might have to take 1/4 of an inch off of one pattern and 1 1/4 inches off of another.
That's where your sloper comes in.
So that's why it would be best if you have those kind of issues and you're concerned about making the alteration is to do the knit fit first. And if, I don't know who I'm talking to anymore, but Liz, that is in the archives right here on Facebook, and you can go back and take a look at that and see if you want to do that first before you make your 5 easy tees. But and I really think that's best, or an inexpensive knit, so that you can get that shoulder just the way you want it. What?
That's all I got so far.
Okay, so shall we go to the ironing station?
Shall we?
Everybody ready for pressing?
No, she's saying vertical. Just kidding. Liz came back.
Oh, okay.
And Liz, I'm sorry. I assume your name is Liz and not Wilson. But
she wants her shoulder to be.
She's saying she gets too much here.
Here. Okay, that adjustment that adjustment, I can show you really quickly, but then you can view it. Connie does it in the bodice DVD, and she also does it in the knit. But what you're going to want to do is, and this is going to be good, you're going to want to know this adjustment. So Liz, if you haven't done the woven bodice, you might want to pick that kit up and pick up kit 2 or 3, because it has Connie's DVD in it that shows you how to make this adjustment. But you're going to come from the neckline down to the arm side, and you're going to cut this just shy of the raw edge here, and then this gets overlapped and takes all that excess out. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do...
In short form, yes. In long form, we probably need the DVD.
Yes, because I'm not even trying to be accurate here. I'm just trying to get the concept. But see, then you're going to do this. See how much that took out and all that excess. You probably want to do a little sloper first and get it just right, because you might want to take out a 1/2 inch. You might need to take out 3/4. I don't know how much gapping you've got in here, but that's exactly how to do it. But you want to watch that DVD and pay close attention to what Connie has to say about it. Because I'm not giving you an accurate demonstration, just the concept here. So don't just cut into your pattern like I just did and think that you're all good, because you're not. Be sure to follow those directions. But I love this method for taking some of that out of there. It really helps people. They get that extra gapping in the neckline.
All right, hopefully that helps Liz, at least gets you started.
Yeah.
And now
to the pressing station. Did I put my little ruler?
I haven't seen a little ruler over here.
Okay, it's over here. All right, so again, let me get my pattern piece. Okay, so one of the first things in your directions is going to be, as long as you're pressing, to go ahead and press your neckband. Oh, it's not on. Okay.
It was on because you burned yourself when we were getting ready.
Actually, I was burning myself on this thing. I had turned it off. Okay, so let's, once I press this in half, which I'm going to show you in a second, then you see how much longer that is than what I needed? I get that all pressed in half, and if one end is wonky or something, I can just avoid it. But generally, all I need to do is just get it to the proper length, and then I just cut it off. But after you've pressed it as best, because some of the knits I've used, they just stretch ever so slightly, but ever so slightly can make the difference in a nice flat fitting neckline, neckband, or one that tilts out. So you want to make sure that you don't want it ill-fitting. You want the right length. Come on, iron. Almost.
That auto turn-off feature is great.
It's not auto turn.
Oh, you just turned it off?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then
I know.
there's no hope.
Well, it was over an hour ago, and this thing gets really hot, so I didn't want to leave it on for 2 hours not using it. Now, some knits will not press up as nicely as this one, and so then you might want to use a clapper. So when you press and you give it some steam, I know this isn't quite ready, but
Imagine the steam.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
It's coming.
okay.
Oh, shoot. That was a blunder. Okay. Then to get it, to encourage it to lay down, we're going to use the clapper to make it stay flat if you have to. It just depends on the fabric, the fiber content of your knit.
Your level of OCD.
Your level of, yeah. Alright, that's enough of that. So this one definitely wants to keep opening back up. Trying to show you how easy this is.
Joke's on you.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's just a gentle folding and getting the raw edges exactly together. That's where you need to be OCD. You want those raw edges together. Don't settle for anything less, because you want a nice straight piece that... Alright, so that's what it looks like, and then we're going to lay this on here for the size that I need, and then I'm just going to cut off what I don't need. And now my band is ready. Try to encourage it to stay flat.
Okay. I don't think you should feel bad about asking that, Pamela. She's asking, what iron setting do we use for French terry?
Well, it's got a lot of cotton in it, so something close to a cotton or a medium setting. Only as hot as it needs to be to take the press. If it's not taking the press, then you've probably got to inch it up a little bit. Oops, this is the front. I need the back. Okay, so in the back only, we're going to apply super fine straight seam tape. And the first thing you need to know is, why are we doing that?
Can you show which tape that is? Oh, I'm going to hold it up, but I can come in. Just so you know, you do get this in your kit, or we have it for sale in the packages. So she's starting with the straight.
Okay, so I know my seam allowance on my shoulder is 3/8 inch. So I want this tape to only be caught ever so slightly. So I want the bottom edge of this tape to be as just past 3/8, maybe almost a 1/2 inch. Let me get this down here. There. Now, you can see that when I stitch this seam at 3/8, I'm catching a little more of that fabric than I want. So I'm going to pull it up. I think that looks a little better. I need to get it over toward the neckline. Okay, there we go. So I think that might be it, but just to double check, you take your little see-through 6-inch ruler or whatever you have handy. All right, so now my seam allowance is 3/8, and I'm barely catching the edge of that tape. So that is exactly what you want. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and make sure the glue side is down.
Make sure the glue side is down, or have your easy off handy.
And so we're going to do the same thing on both sides. And the reason that we do this, I started out to tell you, is so that, especially if it gets hung on a hanger, the shoulders don't stretch out.
Will you show it with the ruler on this side, because I have a better angle too, so
Sure.
they can get.
So 3/8 is that dark blue line right there. There we go. So in other words, theoretically, at the edge of this ruler is where that stitching line is going to be. So it's barely catching that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sticky side down.
I hope so. We'll find out. Okay, so that's the back, and it's ready to be set aside for the construction process.
And I think this would be a good time to remind people why you do it in this order. Why you're doing all of the putting.
Oh, well, this is our express method. So for, in the garment factories, they sew things in a certain order and they pass it on to the next person and the next person, so it's done the most efficient. Well, we only have one sewing operator, that's us, but we can still take advantage of that efficiency. So in other words, everything that you can do at the pressing station before you go to the sewing machine. And then we're going to do everything we can at the sewing machine before we come back to pressing, so that we have the least amount of steps back and forth. And we're spending a more efficient time. As long as I got to press this in half, and I have to put that tape on, now I'm going to put the hem tape on and press up all the hems. So then when I get ready, when I'm finished my construction, my hems are almost done. And that'll make more sense as we...
So you're not sewing, getting up pressing, sewing, getting up pressing. And like Tina mentioned earlier, when you went to get something, she's like, something is always missing. I think I'm ready, but something's always across the room. So this, you know, will help with that as well, because you have all your stuff here. You won't forget your tape over there, or your tailor points.
Let me show them my little tip. I know I've said this before too, but if I can't make this project today, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a project box for it. In all the pre-cut pieces, the pattern, the thread, all the notions, everything goes in here. And I make sure I've collected everything. So I like to cut something out the day before I'm going to sew it and collect all the supplies. And what I realized with this is I don't have the thread. I have the Serge thread, but I don't have the straight stitch thread. So I have to go get it. Everything is in here. When I go to make this t-shirt, nothing's going to be missing. Other than I misplaced my scissors or misplaced a ruler, because I do that a lot. But everything that I need to construct that project, I already know a day ahead of time is all right here. So you'll see these around the studio a lot. Okay, so that's how I avoid having so much missing all the time. Okay, so we have a curved hem. And whether we have a straight hem or a curved hem, we're going to use this double sided fusible tape.
And that package looks just a little bit different.
Yes. And this is double sided, so there's paper on it. And we're going to apply this to the raw, all the way to the raw edge on this wrong side of the fabric. But what I did to prepare it for the curve is that I've cut slits in it. So about every 1/4 to 3/8 inch, I've cut a slit almost to the edge. This is going to allow me to twist this tape to shape it to the garment.
After you tack that, will you move your hand? Yeah. Just
Okay.
to give the idea.
Yeah, so see, I've got that, and it automatically will open up for me so I can start this curve. And I'm just going to touch the iron down.
Ooh. Linda, any of your big box stores, your Target, Walmart, whatever, will have those plastic boxes. I'm sure you could find them
Joann's.
on Amazon. Oh, Janet says Joann's has them.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah, everybody has them.
Doesn't have to be that specific kind. It can just have like a regular pop on and off lid.
Yeah, I like that because it's all, you know, all
Because she would
inclusive.
lose the lid.
Yeah.
But it's nice if you get the clear ones, because they do come in like opaque colors as well. But it's nice to have the clear ones, because then you see which project is in which box, because some of us have a lot of projects at a time.
Some of us. Okay, so now this is I think a little tip of Brenda's, where she presses, because you've still got that paper on there, you can press this hem edge pretty accurately by folding it right on that paper.
With the paper, because it makes it a little bit thicker.
Yeah, it gives you an edge, especially across the straighter part. So now it kind of wants to fold on there. So you can do that. I don't always do that because I forget, but Brenda showed me that's what she does, and it really does help, especially in knits that aren't as easy to encourage. So then we got it encouraged to go up there. Now we're going to take the paper off.
That's satisfying.
And then here you just have to touch it. You don't want to rub it, especially those curves. Here's where the straightaway is so great.
Yes, Susan. She just left the paper on to help her create that edge. And then, as you saw, she pulled it right off.
Yeah, it's got to come off. And then, once we get this constructed, it's all ready to go either through your double needle. If you don't have a cover hem, you might have a double needle hem. Or
okay, so Ethel is asking, when do you serge the hem edge for the faux overstitch? Before or after applying the tape?
Oh, definitely after. See, now it's all hemmed, and then I could just run it through the cover hem machine. Okay, but we'll get to that. This is just our prep work. Now you're going to do the same thing to the front hem. Even if you've got that straight hem, if you've chosen the straight hem to cut out, that's fine. Still do this. You just won't need to cut all the little slits. And so remember, we've got the fine straight tape in the shoulder. That'll keep it from stretching out of shape. And we've got the double-faced. I mean, this hem is beautiful already. Look at it. Look how nice that looks.
So before we move away from the iron, Mary, was it you, Mary? Yes, is wondering about your clippies that are holding the cords together. Is this a John special?
Yes.
It looks fancy.
I think these clips might have come with it. I think these little white clips came with the gravity feed iron.
So, there you go.
So Mary, do you have a gravity feed iron? Because that's the only reason you'd need that. This is really what we call jimmy rigged. It's not exactly as efficient as it should be, but
hey, don't say that. It looks very efficient with your things clipped together.
Well, yeah, it's a temporary situation, but temporary might be 5 or 10 years. I don't know. We'll see. It works. It works. It's not pretty, but
do you know? Tina's asking, does the gravity feed iron take more voltage than a regular home iron?
No, it takes about the same though, and irons take between 1,000 and 1,500 watts. So it's really important when you get a good quality iron to know what your circuit breakers are in the room.
She's saying that's her problem because her builder codes were strict and she pops breakers all the time.
Yeah, so what you want is you want your iron on a circuit that not much else is on, and then you don't have to worry about that. So if you've got, or you can get an electrician in to put a second one in, then you can run all your you could run 5 sewing machines, 10 sewing machines off of one circuit, because they only take about 125 watts. So about 1/10 of what the iron takes. So you could run several sewing machines or your TV, your computer, all these other things off of one circuit, but I would prefer to have my iron. And the other little tip I have about my iron, I have it wired. I had an electrician come in and do this for a very good reason. I had them come in and set it up so that when I turn the lights off at night, it turns the iron off. So it's on the same circuit with my overhead lights, so that when I turn it off, I can go to bed and not wonder, did I remember to turn off that very hot iron?
All right, so that should get everybody started. Oh, let's turn this around here. That should get everybody started with their project. I don't know what's happening in the other room.
Well, you know, we have 5 children in the other room, and we're hoping everything will be salvageable when we get done.
It's only been minimal screaming. It didn't last, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think, and if you guys have questions.
Well, just remember, if this is your first time here, the kits are available for the sew-along. And you'll be able, if you can't, let's say you can't watch next Tuesday, that's okay, because at 2 o'clock, because it is taped and it's here forever. So you can catch up at any time. But the kits, if you want to buy one of the kits, the thing is you're saving 25%. So you're going to get 7 yards of the clear elastic, and you're only going to need a few inches of, so you'll have that for your stash. You're going to get both of those tapes, and they will do many, many projects. But you'll get a roll of the double face and a roll of the fine straight, and you'll get your 1.5 yards, which, like I said, will get you any length you might need. You can lengthen the sleeves, whatever. And the pattern, the complete pattern with all the sizes and all the different sleeves. Now, one thing somebody asked me, she wants to make long sleeve, but she doesn't want the peekaboo. Well, I couldn't get another sleeve into this pattern. So what she asked was something that I showed just 2 weeks ago. And that is, she can use this for the full length, but she could use the short sleeve without the peekaboo for the arm side, and then starting right underneath the arm, use this pattern, just laid one on top of the other actually. And then you can have long sleeves. So you can have sleeveless, short sleeve, 3/4 length sleeves, or long sleeves, and you can have the peekaboo in any of those if you like.
I missed a question from Liz, so I'm just going back. To try to find it. It's about the back. She needs a back adjustment.
Rounded back adjustment? Oh, wait. I don't want to answer a question she didn't ask.
I don't know though. I can't find it. Liz, put it in the comments again. I'm sorry, I missed it.
There's a lot today, so it's hard to keep up with. And sometimes they come in like 3 or 4 at a time and go really fast.
But I do have maybe another one while we wait for that.
Or maybe
to come.
Jessica's just hung over. I don't know.
I'm not.
Okay, good.
Brenda is the elastic for.
Yeah.
Is that work for swim?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now this is a 0.12 mil thickness, and it says when I buy it it's for swim, but it just depends on what. I never made swimwear in many, many years, so I'm not even up on that. But double check the recommendations in your pattern for the size, because we did not go with the heavier, the 0.15, just because of the soft knit. We didn't want the heavy. We tested them both, and we went with the lighter weight one.
Yes, and Sandy, my neckline is straight from the pattern. My shirt does not. I have any adjustments.
Right, as you can see, it's not all that low. And if you want lower, and maybe you want to show a little cleavage, or maybe you're just taller and you want it to be a little longer, like I said, you could just raise or lower that neckline very easily. Just remember, once you've lowered it, you can't raise it back up. If you raise it, you can still lower it a little bit. So keep that in mind.
Yes, and Mary said that she has already done what you said to do for the long sleeves.
Yes.
And it worked great.
Sure. Okay.
So
good.
Not that you didn't know that, but
no, that's okay. I know it's great affirmation for other people, because a lot of times they say, oh yeah, you could do that, but what about me? Well, we have set things in such a situation so that it is doable. It's definitely doable.
Pamela is asking what iron setting for the knit sloper.
I would keep that fairly low. That's a very lightweight knit. And again, just take a scrap, because I don't know your iron. Here's the strange thing about irons. They don't have a reading of the thermostat like your oven. You can set your oven at 350 degrees. You can't set your iron at 350 degrees. Commercially, they do, especially when they're adhering interfacing. It's very precise timing and heat. But we don't have that. And if you got a Black & Decker iron and you set it at cotton, a $10 Black & Decker iron from Walmart,
You shouldn't have that.
you shouldn't have it. It's not heavy enough and it's not going to get hot enough. But if you set that one at cotton and you set a Rowenta or a Reliable or something else at what they call their cotton setting, it could be very different. So what I do is I take a scrap of the fabric and I test it. And if it's not taking the press, I turn it up a little bit at a time until you get the right. And then maybe make a note or a mark on your iron.
All right. Okay, thanks, Liz. I got it. You gave her the adjustment for the extra here.
Yeah.
She's wondering what does she do for the back. She's going to get the DVD, but she wants to kind of play around with it.
What does she need to change the back for?
Maybe it's too much back there. So you gave me the shoulder to bust adjustment. What do I do in the back?
The back, unless you need an adjustment, you just leave it alone. It won't change the back at all. So what you want to do though is you want to make a muslin when you're making that kind of an adjustment, because you could go too far one way or the other. So Liz, if you haven't done that, please do that first. And if your shoulder, because I at first thought your shoulders you wanted narrowed, but what I understood later was you wanted to take some of this extra gapping out of here. Shoulder width is a different adjustment, but Liz, when you as a human, we dip in right here, and you probably dip in considerably, and you're smaller there, so that's why you're getting that gap. But in the back, we round out, so we get longer back here. So just because you need an adjustment here doesn't mean you need it back here. Okay?
Yes.
So the Knit Fit Kit will help you know all of that. Will help you get all of that straightened out.
And Tina, she says, I need to measure the sleeves for a possible full bicep adjustment.
Okay.
What do you recommend on your patterns to do this?
Well, in the Knit Fit pattern 1207, there's directions on how to make that adjustment, and this is based on that pattern. So if you have 1207 or any of those Connie Sloper patterns, it's all outlined in there. We had the peskiest flies.
I know.
Flies have not been bad this year.
Okay, she says she doesn't have problems in the back.
Oh, then
You should be fine.
yeah, that's not going to change the back at all. Now, it could slightly adjust the shoulder slope. That's why I want you to make a muslin, just to make sure that everything is hanging right. What are you going to do?
This fly! Do you guys see this? It wasn't here before.
I think you brought
A kid let it in.
Yes, those doggone kids. Let's get rid of them.
Not Emmett.
Okay, we'll keep Emmett. He's the youngest. He's no trouble yet.
You should have seen him yesterday. Okay, so that I think catches us up on the questions. If you have something specific to get ready for next week, you could send us an email, islandersewing@comcast.net. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And we will be back next week, Tuesday at 2, and Janet will start on construction.
Absolutely, and we're going to do that express construction. And once you've made a few patterns with this method of expressing it, you're going to be able to take any pattern and say, well, wait a minute, I'll just do a few of these things out of order, less steps, and I'll get it done faster. So once you kind of get into the rhythm of this express system, you're going to love it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be doing a lot of construction on the serger. So if you don't have a serger, take heart. You can always straight stitch it and then zigzag the edge. But in the past, I've done everything straight stitch on knits with my sew-alongs and then finished them with the serger. And it's really not necessary in a lot of cases to do that. You just put the 4th thread in the serger and you can make a perfectly wonderful seam. So we'll be doing more of that this time. But yeah, we're here every Tuesday at 2 Eastern time. So if you're Central, that's 1, and so on across the country. And so, but we hope you'll join us, and I will hope you'll join us and sew along with us and make this great t-shirt, because we know you're going to love it.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Bye now.